everybody. Welcome back to the Something New show where we like to find out how to create a life worth celebrating. If you're just joining us, I want you to know that we love coming alongside everybody anywhere in the world and kind of offer an online mentoring for you to learn different ways to live life through finances, family, friendships, faith, health, all the topics that are fun and easy to talk about because they're part of our real life. So today, I can't wait to introduce you to our special guest. She has been a friend for a couple years now, but somebody I've admired from afar and just loved getting to see her gifts being shared with all of us here in Colorado Springs and beyond. People can find you on Instagram, which we'll talk about that. But let me just read her bio because I think you guys will be interested to know that Jordan is a poet. I mean, how often do we meet poets, right? I mean, she's a real life living poet, amazing.
Living in the flesh.
In the flesh and talented. She's a pastor. She loves people. She is a Colorado native, but does not ski and has a love-hate relationship with the snow, which
Mostly hate.
I was going to say, what part do you love if you have any hate? But you just hate it.
Well, not just. It's like I like looking at it when I'm inside looking outside. And I'm like, oh, how lovely. But when I'm out in it, it's stressful. It's cold.
It is stressful. I agree.
Like
okay, and then she is passionate about the arts, owns way too many books, she says, and can be found at any coffee shop at any given day of the week, which I did find out she has quite a passion for all the different, you probably could tell me where to get the best such and such drink or where to go for that because
it's true.
She actually is a local guest, so she lives here. But currently, I'd love to just ask you, Jordan, before we jump into the question, what are you looking forward to on your birthday today?
Oh my gosh, yes, today's my birthday.
Today is her birthday.
32. I know.
She's spending it with us on the Something New show. I feel so honored. Okay,
I know, it's awesome.
Your birthday's today, so tell me what you're looking forward to in this year.
Oh, I feel like it's going to be a year of surprises for me. So every year I get not just a word for the calendar year, but also a word for my birth year. So it's like a personal new year for me.
Yes.
So the word for 32 is surprise.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Oh.
But only good surprises, not bad surprises, obviously.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, how funny. I'm not going to say this for sure, but you are starting your birthday surprise off on a new show.
Yes.
Inside of a bridal shop. So, I mean, should I read into that a little bit? I mean, I don't know.
A little, who knows?
Because I'm like, we are right now. I mean, you can see if you're watching online that you can see we're in an opening, we're operating for business right now. There are brides shopping for wedding dresses right now. And maybe that's a surprise in your future, Jordan.
Maybe.
I mean,
next year we'll see.
Okay, when I
February
have her back,
3rd
we're
of
going to have
2024, I'll say, this is what happened.
I love it so much. Well, I just thought, that's kind of a funny coincidence. Okay, could you start by just telling us a little bit of what you do every week? Like, what's your job? What do you, because I know that's a lot of things besides just pastoral care, but I'm assuming a lot of your week is pastoral care. But tell me about your week, Jordan.
Yeah, it is. So I work for New Life Church for one of the congregations, and it is anything and everything. So I do pastoral appointments and meet with people if they have spiritual questions, just need emotional support. I will go visit people who are sick or take them meals if they need it. Like I will, I don't know, do anything that the congregation needs for services for the week. So it is a mixed bag every week, which is fun.
Yeah. And how much time do you spend writing?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or is it more just when you feel in the flow? It's not scheduled.
It has to be scheduled for me.
Oh, okay.
I heard a quote. I can't remember who said it, but someone once said, inspiration doesn't just come, you train it to come. And so it's one of those things where I have to sit down and say, okay, it's Monday, I'm going to write from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Or it's Tuesday, I'm going to write from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So it's always scheduled. At least 5 hours a week I'll spend writing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what do you do with the writings? Do you share it with others or what do you do with that?
Yeah, so it depends. So I sometimes will do commissions. So people will commission me to write poems for them for, like I wrote a poem for a church out in California for their Christmas service. Or, some of my friends own businesses and they ask me to write poems for like their branding if they're doing something special. So I'll do things like that and share it. But mostly I'm working on long-term projects. So right now I'm working on my second poetry collection, so that'll be published sometime later this year. So it just depends on what idea I have in my mind, and that's what I'm working towards. So it's very rarely, like I write a poem a day just as my own form of journaling. But as far as, sitting down and crafting something for like long-term projects, that just, yeah, it depends.
And I'm assuming it's about all sorts of topics,
Yes,
the poetry.
yes.
It's not just about spirituality. It could be about, the day you had or a relationship you're in.
For sure. Yep. Mostly, I mean, there are some poets who will do, like they're like nature poets, for example, or poets who will write mostly about justice issues or things like that. For me, I like to say that I'm more of a poet of the heart. So it's more of the internal worlds and reflections on that are what my poems are about for the most part.
Wow.
I know, deep. Yep.
I
who
love
knew?
that. I love that so much.
Yes.
I'm like, I have so many thoughts to go from there.
I know.
Okay, so people, if they ever did want to read your poetry, I mean, I'm not even trying to promote it. I'm just really wanting to read your poetry. Like, where would I read that? Did you publish a first book?
I did. I published a first book.
Okay.
So on my Instagram, there's a link to Amazon. So it's just a self-published deal.
Poetry book. Okay, good.
Yeah. So nothing crazy.
And were you formally trained in that, or you?
No, I wasn't.
How did this come to be?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question.
Okay.
So I've always been a reader. So I have pictures of me when I was a little girl, like 3 years old, with books in my lap. So I've always been very literary, very creative just as a kid. I didn't start writing poetry, though, until I was about 12. And it was because I was a lazy journaler. So I would have friends who would say like, Dear Diary, and like long form all of their thoughts. And even at 12, I'm like, I don't have time for that. So I was like doing little bullet points in my journal to like express, what would happen in the day. But I'm like, that looks ugly. Like I need a more artistic way to express what I feel, but still be efficient with it. And so I, found poetry somehow just in one of the books I was reading. And I was like, that is what I'm going to do. And it's stuck with me now for 20 years.
And is that like your most favorite thing to do?
It's not, because for me, I have such a high value for art. And so when I was young, it was just an easy way for me to express myself. But as I got older, I started taking poetry classes, just like local colleges will do, little workshops and that type of a thing. And as I started to learn more about poetry, then I wanted to really be excellent at it. So now it's, there was a time where I really felt, oh, am I good enough at this? And I want to express something in this way, but I don't quite have the words. So there was a period of time where it was frustrating for me as an artist to figure out, okay, I want to get better at this, or I want it to be like this, but I can't quite get there. But I think now that I have, I don't know, just really given myself more grace in that area, now it's becoming fun for me again. But yeah, there was a whole period of time where I was more focused on the craft of it than the love of it. And that was
a game changer to come back to the love of it.
Yes, but also have some skill and technique, to make it even better. So now it's good, but.
What would you say to an artist out there that's saying, hey, I love whatever art they're creating, or they must have a passion for it and a skill set for it too, but let's say they're in the funk that you just described.
Yeah, sure.
Like, oh my gosh, I feel stuck because now I know more technical and how to be an expert in it, but now it's maybe prohibiting my creativity.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say to someone like that?
Yeah. So there's a book called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron.
Okay.
And it is kind of like a 12-week, not course, but just 12 weeks of kind of going through how to give yourself more artistic grace, I would say. And so the thing with creativity and having imagination and that type of a thing is you have to be kind to yourself with that. So it's taking a way to channel the funk, as Julia Cameron would say, taking a way to channel that into creative productivity instead of creative paralysis. And so I think people, not especially artists, but artists can be too hard on themselves. And there's just no need for that, because the point is to create and to get rid of anything that would inhibit your creativity. So be kind to yourself, keep going, and, use the funk to move yourself forward and not shut down.
That's really good.
Yeah.
And do you think that thinking about art in the sense of a source of income for some, do you think that there can be pressures associated with it? And do you have any recommendations to, okay, maybe it's better and healthier to have a separate income for work so that your creative space doesn't feel like almost a pressure, you know?
Yeah. And there is a lot of discussion in the artistic community at large about that. Because artists, like anybody, you know, it's, oh, I want to do the main thing and I want to stay focused on the main thing, which I think is, there is something to be said about that. So I wouldn't tell anyone, don't pursue that. But there is something about not putting pressure on the art and almost like creating a safe space for the art just to be the art, and then having income come from somewhere else. Like
Other
that's,
sources.
yeah, that's something that's helped me a lot. Is just, okay, this is what I do for work and I love this, but who I am, you know, when no one is watching is an artist. And I've always appreciated having outside income to support my poetry, but also real talk, poetry is not that economically viable. So, so for me,
You're like, not a lot of people are saying,
like,
hey, let me find the latest
you
poetry
know,
book.
for sure, like that does not happen. You know, of all the arts, I'm like,
gonna
why
download
is
it on
this a thing?
Spotify
I know.
tomorrow.
Yeah. So other people may have a choice to like, you know, like musicians or actors and actresses, you know, filmmakers, you know, it may not be as cut and dry for them, you know, where I'm like, I can't really fund my life through poetry. Some other people might be able to, but it's one of those things where the priority is making the best art possible and not putting undue pressure on it. And finances can be a huge pressure on art. And so
Now let's talk about just the artist community. I'm just thinking the last few years have probably been tough to connect, but do you ever connect with anybody else in the art community
Yeah.
to keep your sanity in a way and encourage each other to spur on more creativity?
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine that the poetry like niche isn't necessarily oversaturated. So how to find other poets, I don't know.
For sure.
But do you maybe expand that more broad when you're
Yeah.
trying to connect with artists?
I do.
And how do you connect with other artists?
Yeah. So I've always had artist friends, which has been very lucky as I'm thinking about it now. But for me, it's artists, somehow we just find each other, you know? And so for me, it's been really cool to have artist friends because I can have people who can really inspire me to push my creativity to levels that I wouldn't have thought of. So like I love having painter friends, for example, because thinking about how to express something beyond language, they do it visually. And because poets, we emphasize images, that's always been really cool for me. So it's not, oh, this is another poet. It's okay, this is someone who knows how to use images in a way that I can learn from. And so that's been really fun just to kind of pull from different artistic sources, but also having people who, for me, I have a business background. So always having artist friends has kept the poet in me alive. And it's been really cool to kind of be reminded in a way, I'm not crazy. There are other people who need art to survive, and that's good. So.
Oh, it brings so much warmth to our lives to have art. I mean, I just can't imagine without it, you know, so I'm so thankful you have that gift.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
I am. Okay, let's kind of weave a topic in that I know is also dear to your heart, and that's faith.
Yes.
So I imagine that your spirituality side definitely brings some of your thoughts on like where does creativity come from?
For sure. Yeah.
And maybe you could speak to that topic a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of artists will talk about having a muse or a source. And for me, mine is God. And I find that most of my inspiration just comes from thinking about, okay, there is something not just other than me, but something bigger than me. Something that I feel like for me, I think about God being love and God being peace and God giving me hope, you know? And so it's for my poetic inspiration and my artistic source, it is faith for me.
Yeah. And so do you pray before you create a poetry? And like, I was gonna say, like, how do you approach that if somebody's saying, hey, I think I'm an artist and I actually do think I believe in God, like, how do I bring them together?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I do pray before I write. And mostly because I know that in and of myself, I don't have all the words I need. I don't have all, like, to create anything, to build anything takes a type of power. And for me, in and of myself, I don't have that. And so I will pray before I create. And even, I mean, it's not like a whole, on my knees or anything like
you
that.
right now.
Yeah, like, oh Lord, yeah, no. But it's just a quick like pause, even, and then just an acknowledgement of I'm about to engage in something. It's holy work, to create is spiritual. And so, yeah, it's just even if it's just a pause or taking a deep breath before I write, or sometimes even I use specific types of pens. So like uncapping my pen or like clicking my pen, it's kind of like sets my mind in it. Okay, I'm about to write and I'm ready for that.
Yeah, like a official beginning point.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's really, I have some definite like takeaways there as I think through just creating in general. Whether you're creating a business,
Yeah.
you're creating a family, you're creating a new friendship,
Yeah.
and starting to, explore what could be with all those relationships we have. It's not just necessarily in the categorical limitations of art per se,
absolutely.
but I mean, I just think we are creating every day.
Yes.
I mean, I think about the host that is amazing at creating that ambiance and atmosphere
Absolutely.
for the best conversation ever. And I just think there's just creation all around us, and just being observant of the fact that like I'm creating something.
Yeah.
Even if I'm an employee and I go into work, I'm creating an environment with my coworkers, or I'm creating the best day ever for someone and it's their birthday, or
Yes.
whatever it may be. And so I think that's important. But what would you say to someone? I know you have, a deep walk with the Lord, and I would just ask for your thoughts on what would you say to someone that's maybe kind of thinking about their spirituality, not sure what they believe right now, kind of on the fence about, I'm possibly, looking at if there's a Bible for real,
Sure.
if God exists, or other ways, because honestly, Jordan, there's so much new age stuff even right now hitting a lot of our young people in the sense of spirituality. And I think they're just blinded by the fact that it's totally a different thing that's driving that. Let's find your spiritual self and all of that. So what would you say to someone exploring right now?
Oh, that's so good.
Tell me your thoughts.
My first thought is find a church. I have lived without church. I grew up in church and then had a period of time where I'm like, oh, like I love God and I'll show up to church, but why do I really need this? Like questioning that. And for me, there's been a big difference between not going to church and trying to develop my spirituality on my own or kind of sporadically, and actually being faithful and consistent. And there are times where I would just show up to church and sit in the back. So I'm not even talking about like
Being involved.
or anything. It's like being there, being with other people. And that's what I love about being in faith communities, and hearing from pastors every week, or just sitting with people next to you and hearing what they say and not having to figure out how to worship God on your own. It's like being with other people. I cannot overestimate how special that is and how helpful that is. That's the first thing I would say.
The first thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's say they just decide, hey, I'm going to pick up a Bible. And I know a lot of people listening might have just looked at a Bible but said, I don't even know what page to turn to.
Yeah.
Like, where would you say start here?
I always tell people to start with the Gospels. So there are some people who say read the book of John. I think any of the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, start there, because all of Christianity is centered around Jesus. And so for someone who is wondering, what is the Bible about, or what's my faith about? It's like Jesus is our focus, and our focal point. So when you're opening the Bible, start, one of the gospels. And that's what I tell people. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's a good place.
And then reading I think some people get caught up in, I don't understand everything though, or I don't know what all this means. And there are lots of ways to learn all of that. But when you're first reading the Bible, it's just reading to kind of get a worldview or a framework for what is faith, who am I following, what is this person about, what is Jesus about. So not like reading for all of the details, like you're not setting out to be a theologian or a biblical scholar. It's like you just want to know something about who are we following and why.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And I mean, thinking back, you have been in the business world and in the ministry world, even not just at a church, but at nonprofits. What would you say if you can think through a story or a moment in time of like this exact situation where somebody maybe was discovering their spirituality, or you maybe helped them, or the place you worked at helped them, and they really had like an overcome experience where they're like, oh my gosh, this totally is the way,
Yeah. Oh, wow. Lots of stories come to mind, but I'm thinking about a friend of mine in particular who really had a season of her life where she just wasn't sure if she wanted to be a Christian anymore at all. And just
let's just be real, especially even after what has gone through the last few years, an extreme amount of isolation in all of our communities,
right. Yep.
Lower church attendance. I would say community is lacking.
Yep.
I mean, you have to fight for it more.
Yes,
let's just say that. So I feel in one regard, Jordan, I do think that the people that stayed with it and stayed with the community thing and kept going to church or meeting with friends or whatever, I almost feel like those are thicker relationships.
Yes, for sure.
Because we all had to fight just a little harder for them,
Yes.
But then I feel like we had a drop off of people. And so I just want you to continue your story, but to say just to that point, that friend, as well as probably thousands of other people, have thought about, do I really believe this Christianity thing?
Yeah.
Do I really believe it?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that's where she was, just like so many others.
For sure. And what was wonderful for me wasn't like in this story, like I'm not the hero of the story, she is. Because the fact that she stayed connected, at least to me, and came to me and said, hey, I'm not sure about this. And not asking me for advice, like what should I do? But I don't want to be alone in my questioning. And if I am struggling, or if I end up walking away, will you still love me and will you still be my friend? And I'm like, of course. There is no question in my mind about that, And so for me, it's just taught me the value of, in everything that I do, it's like I work at a church, but the point is the people. And the point is the friendship and staying connected to people, and really just showing people love, regardless of where they are or what their tensions are or what their questions are, And so for me, like, there are moments where I've been able to express, some theological point in a way where someone, has had their mind open, or there are things where like I've been able to really like help someone out of a tough situation because I was able to give to them financially, or there are lots of things like that. But the thing for me that I think is the most eternal and the most sustainable is I picked up the phone when my friend called, and she knew, okay, I know that Jordan is very, on the straight and narrow, if you will. But when she said she loved me, she meant it. And even in my tension, I can call her. And that ultimately is what faith is about, is that it's all based in love, and it's all based in, one of my favorite scriptures says, while we were yet sinners, Christ came to die for us. And so when I think of love and I think of a God who loved the world that he gave his only son, it's not just so we can do the right thing, so we can figure it out, so we can be these moral, upright humans. God was like, y'all are a hot mess, but I'm still going to help you out. Or like, y'all do not deserve my best gift of my son, but I love you and I'm going to give you the best I have to offer. Like for me, with everything that I've done, that's what I keep in my mind's eye is I'm going to give people the best of my love because that is what God did for me. So any of my stories are, or the things I'm most proud of are based in that. Like I was steadfast in love, and that's what matters the most.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. Okay, coming to thinking of someone far along in their faith. So, maybe they've been through life circumstances and they are very tried and true. What are some of the habits, like I'm sure a lot of these people in our church or in life that are just like really solid believers.
Yeah.
They've been close their whole life. What are some of the things you see consistently show up as far as their habits or their the fruit of what they're doing? Like, what are evidences and things that you're like, oh, they're doing that? That's something that, like, as a 32-year-old, as a 42-year-old, like, that we should really take note of and go, oh, that's amazing. I want to make sure I'm like that when I'm 80.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yes. There are two couples who come to mind, especially when you mentioned like 80.
It could be 60. I don't care.
But but there are two couples who go to our congregation. So one couple, they're in their 80s. I was at their 80th birthday parties,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, which is so great.
Was it at a nursing home or was it
they are
doing
spry.
good.
They are alive
That's
and well. I am
amazing.
like goals.
I was just trying to picture the setting of where Jordan Victoria Lewis walks in and she's like, "Happy birthday!"
It was at their home. Yes.
Okay.
So that's one couple, and another couple, they're in their 90s who go to our congregation.
Wow,
yeah,
that's amazing.
And so even when I think about those couples, the thing that is consistent about both of them, they are lifelong learners. So they are always asking questions. Like they're not like, we're 80, we know everything. It's like, oh, there's so much more to learn. Like there's so much more.
So much more.
Yeah. So there's an open heartedness. And for me, I'm like, God is infinite. So it's no one can ever arrive at the fullness of knowing who God is. I'm like, he's infinite. He is beyond. Like there's always something to learn, always something to know,
Yes.
And so that's one thing, is always being a learner. And the other thing is sharing what we know with the people around us. So both of those couples serve at church and are faithful in contributing to the body. Everyone has a gift, and the word says it's for our good. It's for the good of the body. And so if we have a gift, we should use it. And so the people who I admire and look up to are people who are always learning, but also always not just serving in any one particular way, but really knowing, sharing and giving to others. So those are the two things I would say.
I love it. Okay, so Jordan, just as we wrap up some of our thoughts today, could you tell us what a great day start to finish looks like for you?
Yes. So I am an early bird, so I always wake up very early. So waking up early, but not having to be anywhere. So let's say waking up at 7 a.m. and just getting to sit in my home for maybe, let's say, an hour.
Okay.
An hour and a half.
But not rushed.
Not rushed.
Yes.
No, definitely not rushed. So getting ready for the day. And then I would say heading downtown. So I live north side of Colorado Springs. But downtown is where all my favorite bookstores and coffee shops are. So,
okay.
Yes.
I see it. I see where you're headed with this.
So I'm going downtown. And I would say brunch with a friend. And then going to a couple of bookstores, then going to an art museum. And then, because there's the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Museum, for any of you who are in Colorado Springs, is actually quite good.
Really?
So, yes,
okay.
It is. 10 out of 10. And then going to dinner with a friend, and then going home. So, yeah, nothing crazy.
But
nothing
that sounds
wild.
like a really good day.
It is.
Like your soul would be filled if you're like, that was my day.
I know, my artist soul.
Okay,
yes.
I love that. Well, we're going to tell you guys what Jordan's favorite drink is today. So why don't you pass it over and tell us what your favorite drink is, Jordan?
Here's yours. So my favorite drink is a honey oat milk latte, and it always has to be hot. I never do iced coffee.
So even in 100-degree summer weather.
100 degrees, I will get hot coffee.
Hot
Period.
coffee. Okay, well, let's do a cheers because I'm so glad you came today on the show.
Thank you, Mindy.
And
this
that
is awesome.
you came for your birthday.
Yes.
And so let's do a cheers. And I'll try your drink. I do like a good honey oat milk latte.
It's delicious.
It's pretty good.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
Oh, of course.
And thanks for being on the show.
Thank
and you
you.
guys, I hope that you were inspired and learned some more. And if you have some friends that are looking for mentoring online and wanting to learn about all the different topics we're covering, please like us, subscribe, follow on Instagram's The Something New Show. And we'd love to see you next time, and have a great day. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review, and share with a friend. Also, follow The Something New Show on Instagram and Facebook. If you want a fuller experience, watch the show on YouTube to help you create a life worth celebrating.